People say life in the suburbs is safe. That beneath the white picket fences, lovingly mowed lawns, and elaborate school fundraisers, there's only routine, a comforting repetition. But I've learned that sometimes the safest places hide the sharpest secrets. And those secrets can belong to the people sitting right beside you, at your lunch table or in your book club. Sometimes they're even closer. My name is Emily Parker. I'm 36, a graphic designer with 2 beautiful children, and I've lived my entire adult life in a leafy, affluent town just outside Raleigh, North Carolina. 12 years ago, I married Eric, a golden boy lawyer with a high-wattage smile and a patient, gentle touch. Our life together wasn't glamorous, but it was solid. School drop-offs, soccer games, backyard barbecues, an occasional argument over who'd take out the trash. I thought I knew everything about the man I loved, and even more about my place in our little suburban kingdom. But, as I would soon discover, sometimes the most dangerous lies are the ones we never expect, and the ones that are closest to home. This story starts on an ordinary Wednesday, just after 9 in the morning. I arrived a little late to our monthly women's club meeting, a cozy mix of PTA moms, ex-lawyers, artists, and volunteer warriors. My best friend Laura always snagged us a table by the windows so we could watch the sun flicker through the dogwoods while we sipped sugary coffee and gossiped. That day, Laura looked radiant, as always. She had this effortless charm, a warmth that drew everyone in. She always wore silk blouses and ankle boots, even when the rest of us arrived in yoga pants. We'd been inseparable since kindergarten, the kind of friends who finish each other's sentences and cover each other's mistakes. I trusted her with everything, my fears, my dreams, and most especially, the private struggles Eric and I faced after his father died the year before. Our club president was running late, so we broke into pairs, chattering about upcoming fundraisers and the town's latest real estate drama. Laura pulled out her phone, her lips curving into a secretive smile. "Hang on, I need to answer this," she murmured, walking just out of earshot. I barely noticed. It was probably her new job at the nonprofit demanding attention. Instead, I chatted with Julia, a recent transplant from San Francisco with an encyclopedic knowledge of rosé. We swapped baking fails and travel tips, and for a moment, I was simply content. But Laura returned, flustered. Her phone slipped, and as she reached for it, I glimpsed a message flash across the lock screen. I didn't mean to read it, but I did. "Thinking about last night. Still taste you on my lips." The sender's name, Eric Parker. I froze. For a handful of seconds, my ears buzzed with denial. Eric was my husband. Eric was at work. We'd had a tense few months, but he'd been trying, making family breakfast every Sunday, planning a surprise date last month. Was I dreaming? I blinked hard, then looked up, but Laura was already stuffing her phone into her purse, cheeks flushed. I told myself not to overreact, not to jump to conclusions. Probably some weird misunderstanding. Maybe Eric was texting me. Or God, some other Eric. But as Laura leaned over to whisper a joke in my ear, her perfume, a vanilla citrus scent Eric had once mentioned, poured over me like cold water. The meeting dissolved into a haze. My hands shook as I drove home, tires humming over the familiar streets. At every stoplight, my mind replayed the same image. My husband's name, my best friend's secretive smile. It was unthinkable, impossible. We had dinners as couples, celebrated birthdays, took the kids trick-or-treating together. If it was true, the betrayal was total. That night, I lay awake next to Eric, watching the shadows shift across his face. He slept soundly, breath even, hand curled on my pillow. For the first time in years, I studied him, not as the man I loved, but as someone suddenly, terrifyingly foreign. Did he seem distracted? Was he pulling away? I replayed our recent fights, his late nights at the office, the distance in his voice. Was I imagining it all? I wanted to confront him, demand the truth. Instead, I planned. I needed proof, something more than a half-glimpsed message, something certain. The next morning, I decided to dig deeper. The next week, I lived a double life. By day, I was perfect Emily, mother, neighbor, friend. By night, I became an amateur detective, searching through phone records, credit card statements, Eric's calendar apps. I found dinner charges at restaurants neither of us had visited. Uber rides with drop-offs blocks from Laura's townhouse, and a handful of late-night phone calls logged in his phone, all marked work. Eric never noticed me hovering. Whenever Laura texted, a meme, a funny quote, an invitation, I responded with forced cheer. Each conversation felt poisonous. I searched her Instagram for clues, but found only the same curated snapshots. Latte art, bike trails, our kids at the playground. I obsessed. Was it paranoia? Or the beginning of the truth? The hardest part was pretending. At the next club gathering, a potluck at Julia's, I wore Laura's favorite color, brought her favorite wine. Let her sit beside me while she laughed and teased out updates about my marriage. At one point, I caught her glancing nervously at her phone, thumb poised to reply to a message. Home alone. I tried to cry, but nothing came. I felt hollow, exhausting myself with the performance of normalcy. Even my kids noticed, offering extra hugs or peering at me with open worry. Are you sad, Mommy? Lily asked one rainy afternoon. No, I lied gently. I'm just tired. Those tiny lies were almost as heartbreaking as what I feared about Eric and Laura. One night, unable to resist, I checked Eric's bag while he showered. I don't know what I was hoping to find. Lipstick? A love note? A receipt? Instead, tucked inside a business folder, was a ticket stub for a museum exhibition dated 2 weeks ago. I remembered that night well. I'd been home with strep throat, and Eric claimed he had a late meeting. I researched the event. A members-only evening, RSVP required. Laura, club president, was on the guest list. I had my answer. The truth, undeniable and cold. The old me would have confronted them with rage. But the new me, wounded and wary, wanted more. I wanted to understand why. And if I was honest, I wanted a kind of twisted retribution. Thus began the game. Every interaction became a chess match. At the monthly cooking class, I asked Laura if she'd seen the new exhibit. She blinked, then smiled as if nothing was amiss. I heard it was beautiful, but I haven't had time. Eric's been so busy at work too. You know how it is. Later, I eavesdropped as she texted under the table. I checked Eric's phone and saw, once again, a text from Laura. Missing you already. I decided to up the stakes. I started planting subtle seeds with our mutual friends. Laura seems quiet lately, I'd muse. Or, is Eric acting weird to anyone else? Each time, I watched Laura for cracks. She never broke. I documented everything. Text times, suspicious calls, their changing routines. I even installed a GPS tracker app on Eric's phone, rationalizing that I had a right to know. The game took its toll. I lost weight, slept poorly, invented excuses to avoid both Laura and Eric whenever possible. My world shrank to 2 suspects, and me, the only one playing for keeps. The real twist came a month later. At the club's spring charity gala, I was co-chair with Laura. We'd spent weeks organizing flower arrangements, seating charts, silent auction prizes. The night sparkled. Fairy lights and jazz in the backyard of the town's oldest mansion. I felt hollow, but determined to play my part. After the main speeches, Laura sidled up beside me. "You did an amazing job, Em." Her hand squeezed mine. "I wish you'd look as happy as you should tonight." I nearly snapped, but forced a brittle laugh. "I think you'd be surprised what's on my mind." Her eyes lingered on me for a heartbeat longer than necessary. The air between us charged with tension. Later, at midnight, I slipped away and doubled back to the rose garden. Through the hedges, I could see Laura, backlit by the glow of party lights, whispering urgently to someone. My heart hammered as I realized it was Eric. They didn't kiss, didn't embrace, but the proximity, the desperation in their voices, told me everything. I pulled out my phone and snapped a photo. I wanted them to know I knew. The next morning, I sent both of them a single message, a copy of the photo with the caption, "There's nowhere to hide in the suburbs." Within minutes, Eric called. He was panicked, begging to explain, insisting it was just a stupid mistake and didn't mean anything. Laura texted, agonized, "Please, Em, I'm so sorry. Let me come over." I refused to see either of them that day. I let them marinate in fear, just as I had for weeks. At last, we scheduled a meeting at Laura's place, neutral territory. Laura looked terrible, eyes red, hands trembling. Eric looked like a man unmoored, guilt written in every line on his face. "Why?" was all I could say. They both started talking at once. Stress, loneliness, confusion, the pain after Eric's father died. Words tumbled out, apologies mingling with justifications, guilt mixing with grief. I stood, unshed tears burning my eyes. You've had each other's time, attention, secrets. I hope it was worth it. Laura tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled away. "We'll never be friends again," I said quietly. "But I forgive you. Not for you, but so I can move on." Turning to Eric, "We need space. For the kids, we'll stay civil. But don't ask me to trust you again." Months passed. The women's club felt different. Laura drifted to the edges, and though others wondered why, no one guessed, except Julia, who hugged me tightly after one meeting, whispering, "You deserved better." Eric and I started therapy, mostly for co-parenting's sake. Our marriage, a formal shell. But I learned something in those months. Secrets might destroy the safe, neat world you built, but surviving betrayal can reveal what you really need and who you can become. I started painting again, took solo trips to places I'd only dreamed of. Santa Fe, New York, the wild Maine coast. I cultivated new friendships, looser and lighter, and learned to love my own company. Sometimes I see Laura across town, a cautious wave, an unspoken apology carried on the air. With Eric, things are simpler now. No more games, just the honest, difficult work of moving forward. In the end, life in the suburbs isn't so safe after all. But maybe, in learning to live with its shadows, I found something stronger than safety. I found my own voice. And that, more than any club, is worth belonging to.